Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kristen Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Jay Setchell to the show. I'm really excited to have him here today. We had a chance to talk a little bit before we got started, and he's just such a great guy. So I know that he's going to bring so much wisdom and probably even some laughter here to the show. So, Jay, before we get into your story, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, Kristen, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before and had some good laughs. So,
Yeah.
you know, little bit about myself. I was raised up in the upper Midwest on a big working farm. I've worked nights and through high school till
Mhm.
midnight, 12:30 at night, back to
Oh,
school the next morning early. Uh, Went in the Marine Corps. I've had multiple deaths that I've gotten brought back from, resuscitated. I've had four very near deaths where my wife was told to go home and make funeral arrangements. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've worked corporate life. Uh, I got retired from that when I was 41 because I was a risk, which is now 36 years ago,
okay.
risk that I would fall down or because I was so paralyzed and had so many surgeries. And they didn't need that because I worked premise, so I was outside
Okay.
corporately.
Okay.
And, but I started some more other companies and kept growing and
Hmm.
closed. That's just kind of life. I've been married and divorced. I'm married my third time. We're
Okay.
raising twins that are 8.5. We've had since they were 3 weeks old. We adopted at 3 years, a little
Oh,
boy and girl. And I just, I, I don't know. I don't know the word quit. I don't know the word not try. I can't spell the word quit. I don't know
yeah,
how. And I think it's a short word, but
it
I
is.
don't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
I don't use it. Everything's
Yeah.
possible. Everything's
Yeah.
possible through God,
Yeah.
and I know that, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here because of him. So
Yes. Well, when I saw, what you're about and like not quitting, I was like, we got to have him on because I think in our world there are too many that just quit at the first sign
yeah,
of
uh,
hardship, the first sign of hard, the first sign of like circumstances that maybe aren't lining up in timing. Take us back to maybe when you're younger. Like, is this something that's just always been part of you? Is this something you've grown into? Like in vocabulary back in, English, you saw the word quit and you're like, nope, I'm erasing that. That's not even like, what does it look like for you, Jay, to never, never quit? To be like, nope, I'm not part of that.
I I think probably the first word that comes to mind, and I use it quite often, really, is stubbornness. I'm just stubborn,
Mhm.
and I was raised that way. I was, uh, seventh or eighth generation on our farm.
Mhm.
So I looked at what my dad was going through. I looked what my grandfather was going through because he was still with us for many years of my life initially and helped on the farm. And what about the ones that went before us? And so I was raised with that sense of urgency and fortunately, seeing the cycle of life. And I mean
Mhm.
that from a farmer's point of view, as you see younger
Mhm.
calves growing into feeders, growing into full cattle, and we fed hundreds of head of cattle. Um,
Um,
and crops, you watch your crops. You're in the upper Midwest, way a little further north, but
mhm.
when you plant a kernel of corn, it's this big, and then it gets into a stalk of corn, then a bigger stalk, and it gets 10, 12, 14 feet tall. It's got 3 years of corn on it with hundreds of seeds on it that you planted one of. And
Yeah.
and then you harvest it and you turn it over and winter hits and usually but I always had other work. We had other businesses. We had other jobs. So I, you just can't stop because if you stop,
Mhm.
then life quits for your cattle, for your crops,
Yeah.
and so on. And when I was a young boy, I had this problem of stepping on nails. I just had a
Oh,
terrible thing in this. The one
Oh.
time was I was about seven, I might have been eight, but I think seven, and I had stepped on a nail out towards one of the big brooder houses, chicken houses we had, and
Mhm.
my grandfather was a few steps ahead of me, and it was in the winter, or early spring, late winter. There was still 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground. We had the four buckle boots on. You know, you put them over your shoes and you buckle them up, and
Mm.
I'd stepped on a nail that went up through my boot, through my shoe, through my foot, out my shoe, out the top of my boot. And I'm sitting there and I'm screaming, like Grandpa, it's like, and I'm looking down. I was on about a 2, 3 foot wide piece of 2x4. And we were very, very good about bending nails over or pounding
Yeah.
them out and straightening them out and reusing them. And how
Mhm.
this one ended up where it did, how it did, why it did, I don't know. God put it there, I guess, just for me to test me again.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
Grandpa came back and he told me, he said, he looked at it and he said, okay, here's what I want you to do. He said, I want you to squat down and I want you to put your hands on my shoulder and I'm going to put my hands behind your knee, or on your lower part of your leg, right behind your knee. And
Mhm.
on three, I'm going to pull your foot up off of that nail. And he said, one, two, and it went. And that was it. And then they took me to the hospital. They took the boot and the shoe off and they flushed it through and the water went through the top and came out the bottom of my foot, and I'm like, oh my God, and the thing
Oh.
it scared me more or worried me more was I had to have a tetanus shot. And I
Oh.
didn't like needles. The nail was bad, but the needle was worse. And so I don't know. It's just like, you know, patch it up, get back home, and
Yeah.
and we went right back to work. I
Wow.
mean, I didn't go in and get 3 weeks worth of bed rest and
Right.
sit down
Yeah.
because that was like 1957, 56,
Mhm.
57, and
Mhm.
that's just what you do. So to answer, you know, I. I think it could be somewhat maybe in your DNA.
Yeah.
Maybe it just comes from consistently never quitting in
Mhm.
every little thing you do, whether it's fight the 30 below zero weather to feed
Mhm.
the cattle, whether
Mhm.
it's fighting the 100 degrees in the fall when it's excessively hot for 3 or 4 weeks, which it very seldom is, but it happens. You know, deal with it. Just
Yeah.
deal with it. If you slip on a wrench and bust your knuckles open, you just do. It's just that's all it is. And
Mhm.
just I think each little tiny thing just adds up over time, Kristen. It just
Yeah.
where did you get this or where did you get that? Well, I don't know. I've been through it 400 times or 4,000 times.
Right.
And it just builds up and you don't
Yeah.
have a reason except
Yeah.
I'm going to go do it, get out of
Mhm.
my way. And my dad never had any time for excuses. And
Mhm.
he told me it's like pulling weeds, and we had a lot of weeds and we hoed a lot of thistles out. We did a lot of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
out in the pastures, and and he told me, he says, hey, I don't ever want to have to tell you to do something. I want to just make a suggestion. Looks like there's weeds around the cattle lot need to be pulled.
Oh, that's good.
That's my idea. Okay, I don't. He doesn't have to tell me. So
Mhm.
I learned very early that after it rained, give it a
Mhm.
day or so, let the earth soften up a little bit. Boy, it's a whole lot easier to pull the weeds. So
Mhm.
recently, I told my son now, the adopted son we have, that
Mhm.
I've got some weeds out here, and I told him, listen, after it rains here, which
Yeah.
we've had a few days of rain, it's a good time to pull it. And he goes out and he goes, oh my gosh, they just pop right out. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's learned experience
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
apply it. I mean,
Yeah.
and one more, probably the worst one I had on the farm um, was when I had just turned 17. So my birthday is New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And within the next 4 or 5 days, I was up in the silo chipping silage off and came down and was on a feeding auger they're about this big around and they churn like a meat grinder. And but I had to walk down about 8 or 9 feet down down the auger to get off of it, and there was a big snow drift over there, and that's I was just going to jump into that, and
Mhm.
uh, about the second I was getting ready to jump off, the auger started to turn, and my grandfather had kicked the auger on and kicked it off. But it made enough of a revolution that it took my foot, right ankle, my right leg, took it down underneath it. It broke my right ankle, cut my boot open, sliced my leg open. But I was launching off of that and got into the snowbank, and the blood's coming out and all this, and I'm screaming, and but I was grateful that it stopped. I mean, I really
Hey.
was. I mean, I was grateful that, and people have asked, how can you be grateful? I said, but because if it would have stayed running, I'd have been chewed into hamburger. They would have never found me. That where
Oh
did
my
Jay
God.
go? He came out the side. Well, he's not up there, and they would have found my bones that the cattle wouldn't have eaten in the cattle trough. So, I got
That's really
taken into
good.
town and
Mhm.
stitched up, and they put my foot in a kind of a walking cast. They didn't really have a walking cast back then, but it was kind of like that. And
Mhm.
I don't remember what day that was, but the next day I was back at school again, and I went to
Yeah.
work that night, and I worked an 8 hour shift from 4 to 12:30 at night, and
Wow.
and it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sitting here right now in a lot of pain from
Mm.
15 back surgeries, but my pain isn't as bad now as it
Mm.
was before we got involved in our conversation because
Yeah.
now my mind's off of it. It's not
Yeah.
that I put my mind on the pain,
Yeah.
but it's like when you're sitting there and I don't know, you've done something to yourself or you're hurting.
Mhm.
Um, Busy mind, or busy hands, busy mind. If you're
Mm.
doing something, you don't
Yeah.
think about it. But
Yeah.
then when you have time, or if it's dark out and it's thundered out, now you're hurting. And now it's
Mhm.
twice as bad as it really is because that's all you can think about. But
Yeah.
I've had to learn over the decades, many decades, to, to keep doing something.
Mm.
But I don't know,
Mhm.
that kind of goes back to some of what keeps me moving. It's just
Yeah.
it was a it was not an easy life. I remember shoveling coal when I was a little kid, and then my dad put in LP gas. We put a different furnace in
Mhm.
when I was about 10. But I remember telling Dad this shovel, this is really hard to throw the coal back in the furnace as far. So he went and he bought me a smaller shovel.
Oh,
Yeah, we got an answer for that,
right. Right. Got
you
the
know.
solution.
And he
Yeah.
said if that's not enough, you could throw them in chunk at a time, but it was
Oh,
hot when you'd open the door up. So it was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. It's just,
Mhm.
and you look back and I think because today people want they want a car that's got air conditioned seats. They want a car that's got heated seats. They want a car that's got this, a car that's got that. Or you want a remote control start it. Well, back
Mhm.
when we were younger, you go out and you get in the car and you go, okay, it's
Yeah.
12,
We can
5,
do this.
well, 5 below 0 or 30 below, and you're going, you pull the choke out. You didn't have an automatic choke. You pulled the choke out. You pumped the gas a couple of times. You went, "Rrr, rrr,
Yeah.
rrr, 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 rrr," and
Yeah.
okay.
We're
And then
good.
you sit there and you let it warm up for about 3 minutes and you scrape the ice off or move the snow if it was outside. Ours were generally inside,
Mhm.
but it was still the fact that you just got in it and you went
Yeah.
and instead of letting it sit there for 10 minutes to heat up or warm up, let it sit for a minute or two till the oil flows and then
Mhm.
drive the car because when you're driving it, it's going to warm up quicker.
Yeah.
But people don't understand that. So it's just a combination, Kristen, I think of all the little things that we
Mhm.
went through. I can imagine, can you imagine the pioneers?
I think about them a lot.
Okay, I
I
do too,
do.
because we
Yeah.
were pioneers,
Yeah.
and that's how we got where we were at.
Yeah.
And before that, and
Mhm.
it's like when I asked my grandmother one time when I don't remember when, I was probably out of the service,
Mhm.
and I said, Grandma, what do you remember about the Depression? And she said, not not a lot, because we lived off everything we grew on the farm, all the gardens, all the vegetables, the fruits, whether it was asparagus or elderberries. We butchered our own chickens and hogs and cattle. We lived, we canned it. We had the root cellar, down in the basement that was bricks because we
Hmm.
didn't have concrete back when they built the basement in our house, and and all that stuff, and that
Hmm.
it's just you lived on the land. You lived by the
Yeah.
land. Now, she
Yeah.
said we would read about it, and it affected fuel supply or it affected finances for
Hmm.
people that we didn't know, but then we helped those people.
Oh, that's
So
great.
because we had stuff that we could share.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that goes back to another thing of that I think that we don't have today, Kristen, while I'm on the subject, is
Hmm.
the sense of community, or the
Yeah.
not the sense of community, the actual
The actual,
community,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
that's how I was raised,
Mm-hmm.
helping other people, working with other people, taking care of other people. It
Mm-hmm.
was just a natural thing inbred in me, and I watched it. I lived it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just not a question.
Hmm.
And town people or city people, we called them because they were in town, but town was like 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Um, there were like 4,200 when I graduated high school.
Wow.
And, but they, those people as a rule, not all of them, but they had
Hmm.
a job that was 8 to 5, or maybe they
Okay.
worked a second shift in a small factory. Um, but that was it. That's what they had. And they
Hmm.
still provided. Where
Yeah.
we had a lot of different things going, and I mean,
Hmm.
we also did a lot of agricultural spraying with the planes.
Yeah.
We had contracts with Del Monte, Green Giant up in Minnesota, up in
Yeah.
Sleepy Eye, Minnesota.
Hmm.
Uh, and plus we sprayed for ourselves, we sprayed for other farmers, and so there was always something going, always
Yeah.
something doing, and you're always helping. And my mother taught; she was a teacher. Then she also taught piano lessons, and on top of
Hmm.
that, my dad was always on the school board or president of the school board or something. So very involved in the community,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that you wanted to, you didn't do it. I don't think they did it. Let me go back to them
Hmm.
to be. They just did it because it was part of what they should do.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So, because it's like, I'll give you an example. My dad brought home 4 or 5 desks for the schools when I was about eighth grade, roughly
Okay.
about eighth grade. And he said, listen, I want you guys, we had these people, we had all these, we need desks for the schools. And so I had all the people that were going to propose desks, bring them in and leave us one. Now, I want you guys and get your friends by, or if they can come over, we got them for a month. And I want you to jump on them, bounce on them, throw them around, do whatever you want with them. But the one that lasts the best is the one we're going to buy, instead of just going out and somebody go, boy, you know what? I can get a little kickback from that. I can pad my pocket. Yeah, we'll take that one. And that's
Hmm.
kind of what they do today.
Sure.
It really is. I mean, that's how you end up with you got one person, you know, and they buy it. And so we did that. That's what happened. It's a, and it's a good story because in those deaths lasted for decades and decades, and
Wow.
and they made a comment. I remember something about something in the paper that, due to something that, Gib Setchell had done, my dad,
Yeah.
here's what he did, and it's like
Yeah.
crazy because these are the
Oh, wow.
most solid deaths that we've ever seen.
Wow. I love
So,
it.
you
Sounds
know,
like you had a very good example in your father to
oh,
bring
tremendous.
this, like, um, we were talking about this word, stick-to-itiveness
Yes, ma'am.
earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I want to make sure that we really capture, I love everything you've shared so far because it's just, bringing to light, just even you've lived through a lot of changes in our world. Each
Oh,
decade, we're in such a time of things are changing really quickly. But I want to make sure that we really capture when you first started sharing with us, about your life. You've overcome death. You said 4 times.
well, three. totally. And four, I was right there. I mean, I was not supposed to make it.
Okay.
So
Most people don't come on my show and say that. So tell us what you've walked through. And again, this is part of, oh, I do want to ask one thing. When you had that second accident with your foot, was it the same foot as your nail went through?
nope, the opposite one.
Okay, so you were balanced at that
Well,
point.
God wanted to balance me
You had
out.
to,
I mean,
okay.
left
I just want
foot,
to make
right?
sure
Yeah.
somebody else might have been wondering. But take us back to, some of these events that you've walked through. Like obviously, God has you here for a very strong purpose, and I have a feeling somebody is wondering like what happened to him in each of these moments. Would you take us back?
I'd like to just kind of go through them quick though, if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah,
If I get too detailed, I get tears. Um, but I want to make a comment that a lot of this, in the older I've gotten, and I'm talking even the last 20, 30 years, and there's people listening that probably aren't even that old yet.
Mhm.
Um, uh,
Would you share what your age is? Would you mind?
I'll be 77.
Okay, incredible.
So
You
yeah,
guys listening in, like,
and
please
yeah, and
remember.
I don't feel. I feel like I mentally. Somebody asked me. They said, "How old do you feel?" I said, I feel like I'm kind of stuck between about 22 and 28. That's kind of where I feel.
That's amazing.
I get in trouble like I'm 12, but bodily, my physical pain and body, as I definitely was in the Revolutionary and the Civil War. I know that for sure because I'm still carrying the damage with me, So I've kind of got to balance them out. But I
Mhm.
don't think young or old. I think young.
Yeah.
I think options. I think ahead. I plan ahead. You know, I
Yeah.
at my age, I'm planning what I'm going to be doing when I'm 90, when I'm 90 or 80, 85, 90, 95. I want to live to be 100. And somebody asked me, why do you want to live to be 100? I said, well, actually, I want to live to be over 100. But I said, because it'll just, irritate the hell out of some people. It's just like, how did he do that? Well, it doesn't matter. He did it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, Kristen, to get back really to where you're having me go,
Mhm.
is I believe a lot of it goes back to being faith-based.
Yeah.
And I would bring that up. And I went to Sunday school
Mhm.
every Sunday that we had Sunday school. And we had a little pin that we put on our sport coat. And and then each year you had perfect attendance. You had another little thing that hung down from it. And I had all 12, all the way from, well, kindergarten through senior. I never missed once.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
we didn't go to church a lot, but we went to church probably about 30% out of the year. And after we had Sunday school sometimes, or when we didn't go to church, right after Sunday school, we would, if it was the weather permitting, we would go on picnics, family picnics. And I had, there were four siblings totally. I was the oldest, and my mom and my dad. And we would go to, the county parks we had a couple of parks that had covered bridges. We had some with little lakes and slight hills where the Indians had been, the Illini Indian tribe and Chief Shabana and such. And we just enjoyed it,
Mhm.
and we would, you know, mom, well, anyhow, it was just kind of
Yeah.
dad would come back and we driving home, we'd have the windows down because that was our air conditioning,
Right.
and we'd be singing a church song or we'd be singing the
Oh,
songs that he sang when he was in Sunday school.
okay.
And I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it was a very wholesome
Mm-hmm.
upbringing. So that takes me and so I wanted to mention that I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of it had more of an effect on me than I've realized over the years. It was kind of like a good basis,
Yeah.
and whether I understood everything that we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
which I probably didn't, because you look at it differently when you're
Yeah.
8 years and 10 and 12 and 14 than you do when you're 30 or 50 or 70 or whatever,
Right.
but if you got that belief, uh
Mhm.
but after that when I was in the Marine Corps, make a long story short, Well, I can't make a long story short,
It's
but
okay, I
I'm
understand.
kind of like you committed yourself
Yeah, I always tell
before.
people, they ask me a question, I'm like, do you want the appetizer version or the buffet version?
Yeah, yeah. But I went in the Marine Corps. I enlisted in '67, went in '68. My grandfather had a heart attack. I got put on a delayed enlistment program so we could get the crops out and the crops in, and they picked me up and took me in. All it was all during the height of Vietnam,
Mhm.
and but I went in and make a long story. Short. I can do that. Is I ended up in criminal intelligence. I did some other stuff before that. Ended up in criminal intelligence. I witnessed a guy almost die, and I gave a report because I said, "Hey, this is wrong. It's wrong, and they need to know about it." And the guy asked me what happened, and I told him in a lot of detail. And he said, "How do you know so much detail?" And I said, "Well, my life has always been detail.
Mhm.
How much do you feed the cattle? How do you meter in certain amounts of commercial feed or minerals? How long can you plow on a gallon of diesel or disc, or how long can you fly at 80% power with 12 gallons of fuel? It's just all that. And so I pay attention to a lot of detail. And I still do.
Yeah.
I'm very detail oriented. But
Mhm.
um, I happened by in the Marine Corps, though, I was in 17 months, 12 days, and about 20 hours when I died my first time. And I had gone to a guy that worked for me in my criminal intelligence unit. And I just happened to stop. I went into Oceanside, California. I was based out of Camp Pendleton at the time.
Mhm.
And I got to their house. And long story short, I went into their apartment, little small, not where non-commissioned officers live, was very, very, very small.
Mhm.
And I went in because the screen door was open, but nobody answered. So instead, but anyhow, I got into the little apartment. I heard a scream, woman scream. So I ran to the sound of the scream, and I went to the right, down the end of the building. And as soon as I got there, I saw another guy running away over around another uh, 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 apartment building. I can't think what we call it,
Mhm.
and Stitz was on the ground. His wife was hovered over him. She was screaming. He was bleeding all over. They cut his head open with like a box cutter or something. I don't know. But they cut his head. They sliced it open. His ear was mostly hanging off down into the neck. They missed what I figured the jugular but he was pumping blood bad. So I had her get a towel and I said, grab some alcohol and a towel fast. I know the alcohol make it bleed more, but I need to see what the problem is. We need to get this taken care. But there weren't that many words said, and she was gone. Comes back with a towel and a bottle of vodka,
Mhm.
and we're 19 years old. We shouldn't have had vodka, but we did. I mean, it's like the, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, we're jarheads. And it's like we're Marines. And so anyhow, I poured a little vodka on it and wiped it
Mm.
down and found just the blood was just pumping. So I got him carried to my car, put him in the car. I put her in the middle. I had her put her right arm around his neck and head, and then take and put the towel, the drier part of the towel, as hard as she could, push against it, like so, against like opposing force
Yeah.
against it to keep it from bleeding the best she possibly could. Well, so we took off to go to the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton, California. And there may have been one locally, but that's the closest one I knew of at the time,
Mhm.
and it wasn't that far away, 7, 8 miles, 9 miles. And driving down the road, it was dark. A semi had pulled out from an orange packing plant alongside the road, pulled up onto the road, and was turning. And he was covered onto the road where we ran into him. The drivers, the part that the
Yeah.
driving tires, were right in the road. The trailer was stretched off behind, heavily loaded. He had one headlight that was working, which we didn't even, we never saw him. It was like running into a dark tree on a dark night. And he had no side lights, none of the reflectors, everything was covered with dirt. The reflectors didn't, or the reflectors were covered with dirt. The tape was covered with dirt. The lights weren't working. and we had 4 or 5 cars behind us. And I mean, I don't remember any of this, but I know from all the reports and what happened and
Mhm.
the stuff as you learn now, it's like, why did
Yeah.
that plane crash? Well, you don't know, but you find out later.
Mhm.
And the guy that was directly behind us was a full bird colonel, and
Mhm.
he made a statement to the California Highway Patrol that had he not hit that semi, it would have been us. Because
Oh, really?
and we may have been decapitated because he might have been pulled further out and we would have gone underneath the trailer and it just would have sliced our heads off. Well, I was driving a 66 Ford Galaxy 500 XL that was 17 feet 4 inches long that compressed to under 10 feet in length, and then it burned. So we were all crushed inside badly. And three Marines coming from the other direction. They were all three captains. They were, and the last one is the one I just told you. I just went and visited. He's the last one that's alive.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
were on their third trips to Vietnam, and they were in staging battalion, which is where I was at when the accident happened. It was a long story. And so, but they couldn't tell what that was. They said they could see a glow up there. Well, when they got there, they realized that there's a car that's hit this semi and it's on fire. And Walter, the one that's still alive, said, "Hey, we gotta get him out." And
Yeah.
they didn't have any clue we were Marines. We were, because Marines can't leave base. Well, they can leave base in uniform or utilities,
Mhm.
their work clothes, uh, but you can't get out of the car.
Oh,
You just you can't get out of the car. I mean, that's
okay.
the rules.
Yeah.
And but anyhow, so he goes on about how he fought and they fought and they fought. And he said, "I'm sure we broke some of your bones, Jay, because you were crushed. Your head was crushed into the steering wheel, just like throwing a rotten pumpkin into a wagon wheel because it was embedded. So we had to dig your face out. I had 32 facial fractures. My skull was crashed in. My hair was burned off. I had burns up here. My left jaw was sticking out here. When they got me out, like my left foot, my bottom leg of my left leg was broken so bad. My left foot was turned backwards. I had punctured, busted ribs, punctured lungs. My every third-degree burns.
Mm.
And he said we worked. The only it was dark, and the only thing we had was the light of the fire under the hood, under the dash, and in the trunk area, and under the car. At that time, was your leg was on fire. So that's what we were trying to do. Was anyhow. So when they pulled me out, I was dead, and they got me back later, about 20 minutes, and Linda came out pretty good.
Mhm.
Linda, the spare tire had torn loose from the trunk when, on the
Yeah.
impact, had gone off and taken off the top back of her head, and then she had slid up over the gear shift, and so she damaged all of her lower organs and lower stomach area, and she
Okay.
was in a coma for 18 months and passed away.
Oh my
So
God.
I literally think about her every day of my life.
Mm.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
The families never held it against me. They were
Yeah.
great. They were grateful that I was trying to help Roy. Roy would have died. Roy would
Yeah.
have bled out, laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Nobody was there to help, and it doesn't take long. I mean, you bleed. I know because my ex accident, I did
Mhm.
bleed out and die. I did. And
Mm.
but anyhow, so and in Roy, he didn't get broken up as bad, but they were trying to get him out and they couldn't get the door. They couldn't even touch the door. It was too hot. All of a
Mm.
sudden, it just kind of like popped open, and they think that maybe he got the handle to work enough or something, and they took the clothes and they were trying to get it to pull it out, and they got him out and they put him up by a tree about 45, 50 feet away from the car. And then Walter tells me Walter's got real bad PTSD on this, real
Mm.
bad. And PTSD, people misunderstand. It's not what's wrong with you, it's what's happened to you. You
Could you
got to
say that?
think about that. It's not
Say that
what's
again.
wrong with you. It's not what's wrong with you. It's what's happened to you.
Yeah.
In other words, if you see, if Kristen sees a small child get run over by a car going too fast by a drunk driver, it will have an effect on her for probably the rest of her life, especially with small children. When she
Yeah.
sees a small child near a sidewalk, near
Mhm.
whatever, it can have that effect. But
Mhm.
so when Walter and I didn't connect with him for years, and then God told me uh, that I should reach out to everybody that was a survivor
Mm,
and tell them what a hero their fathers were. And it took me decades to find them. And through a friend of mine that's also he was a full bird colonel in the Marine Corps, and through his contacts at the Pentagon and all the digging he did, he found out uh, two of them had already passed away, and
mm,
then Walter was alive living in Florida.
mhm.
And I sent him a letter. Now it's been about 11, 10, 11 years, 11 years ago. And I
Yeah.
just put, to Walter Reeves, my name's, I told him who I was. I'm looking for the man that helped save my life, on the night
Mhm.
of November 12th, 1969. And blah, 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 blah. And I put, this is not a joke. This is real. I'm very serious.
Yeah.
If it is you, please contact me, the following phone number or
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey, would somebody oh, sorry. And so, anyhow, about 10 days later, I got it was around Thanksgiving time, about 10, 11 years ago.
Mhm.
And about 10 days later, I had a phone call, I had a message on my phone, and the gentleman says, "Hello, Jay, this is Walter. And yes, I am who you're looking for. I am Captain Walter Reeves."
Oh,
And
wow.
wow. And I wanted to respond, but I couldn't.
Mm,
And it took me a couple of days. And I finally thought, okay, I'm going to call and say hello and all that.
yeah.
And um, sorry, I can't
It's okay.
swallow. Uh, but when he answered, I couldn't talk.
Mm,
I couldn't say anything. I just had tears.
mm,
And he
mhm.
he at that time said, "Jay, I know how you feel because I had your letter for a week and I've cried for a week."
Mm,
And we finally got it to where we could talk eventually, but it was a hard thing. It was a hard thing. How do you tell someone thank you
yeah.
for saving your life and putting their life 100% on the line?
Mhm.
And sorry. And when one of the things that got me so much about the effort that they put forward when we
Mhm.
talked and he came and visited here a couple of years later, they were on
Yeah.
their way to Oklahoma. And he told me, he said, after all this had happened and before the emergency vehicles got there, or when they got there, they were going over to the emergency vehicles and um, um, they had skin hanging from their hands and arms from the burns and such. And when they were getting cleaned up, as they cleaned them off, yes, they had some light first degree burns.
Mhm.
Uh, but the skin that was hanging on them was
Oh, wow.
our skin from pulling us out of the car. So think about that as a mental picture for the rest of your life,
Mm-mm.
So I got on this thing about, and I was advised against it by a few people, but I wanted to
Mm,
call every wife, every ex-wife, every widow, every
yeah.
child, man, woman. whatever, and tell them thank you and what a hero their father was. And it
Mm.
took me about 3 months to do it. And Kristen, I never got through one phone call that I wasn't just,
Mm.
I was crying my heart out.
Yeah.
And my parents had made sure that they were recognized through our congressman, wrote a
Mm.
letter to the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
and the Marine Corps recognized them with what they call the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for heroism, which is
Oh,
equal to the Medal of Honor, but
oh, wow.
in non-combat situations. So Captains Hudson, and Reeves all received. There were 340,000 active duty Marines that year, and
Okay.
only 9 of them received that medal. 3 of them went to the ones that helped save us.
Oh my gosh.
So sorry, that's why I don't.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk,
Yeah.
but I was in a coma for about a month, and then they put me back in another coma, induced coma,
Mm.
and for a couple of weeks, and I went through tracheotomy. Well, of course, that's how they got me. It's a long story how they got me back. I had a very, very violent, terrible out of body experience.
I was going to ask you if you remember anything.
Pardon?
I was going to ask if you remembered anything while you
I
were
just remember
coma
being
or.
out of my body, Kristen, and up against my back was up against the ceiling, looking down,
Mm.
and everything was red, most likely blood. Uh, one second. Excuse me. Um, and 3 doctors had been working on me, and they were walking away. And I cussed and swore like I would have killed them. I
Mm.
was yelling, I'm not dead. Don't leave me. Get me back. I don't go, and I'm going to come down there and choke you. I'm going to kill you. I don't care. Except I was saying bad words.
Mm.
And I was really good at it by then.
Mm.
And one second, please.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Okay.
Um, but they were walking away, and another doctor came in, and he was a oral maxillofacial uh, surgeon for
Yeah, for the jaw.
jaws and all that. And they apparently had probably called him because my face was like ripped off and bad. I lost teeth that not just broken out. I mean, they're gone. I've never, they're, my jaws collapsed and such. And but he started listening and thinking and doing some stuff. And what prompted him to do it, he finally got a scalpel and cut my tracheotomy. And they, uh, he got something in it to hold it open. But when he
Mhm.
cut my tracheotomy, the blood just squirted up out of my neck. It's just like a whale surfacing. And what had happened is I had had broken ribs, enough broken ribs, and they punctured lungs, and I had drowned in my own blood. And so that compressed my heart because it didn't have any place to expand because of the pressure, because I was
Yeah.
so crushed badly. So I had no heartbeat, I had no blood pressure, I had nothing. I can understand why the 3 couldn't find anything. But when he did that, it gave enough relief that
Yeah.
whatever else he did, and I started coming back. Now, at that point, I remember seeing the blood. I remember seeing him get covered with blood, the walls. Uh, and
Mm.
I don't remember anything. Then I obviously re entered my body. And then it was quite some time later till I can remember anything else.
Oh my gosh.
So,
And you were 19 at this age? At
yes,
this
ma'am.
point?
Yeah,
19.
yeah.
You'd already lived a lot of hard up to that point. A lot.
Well, I think what I'd been through was preparing me for this.
Yeah, it was, yeah, like the we talked about before, it's like strengthening you for the preparation of being resilient and strong
And and
and
be and before stepping on a nail, my dad used to use his belt on my fanny when I was a bad enough boy. That was back in the old days when and somebody asked me
it's
that.
not a pleasant experience. I
Well,
remember
you,
those days.
what's funny is somebody asked me about it once. And I said, "Did I say I hate you?" I said, "Probably." Did it hurt? Yes. Did I do it again? No. So, spare the rod and spoil the child. That's
Mm,
where it is. And we've gotten away from that. And look what we got. Look at the society we got. And
mm,
I'm not going to go there. I'm
yeah.
pretty opinionated on that.
Okay, I get it.
But but
Yeah.
anyhow, so yeah, and then but I mean the first I remember being in the coma, of
Hmm.
course, and then being able to stick my tongue up through the roof of my mouth,
Oh
up
my
up up
gosh.
into my sinus passages. Because on the roof of your mouth, when you run your tongue over your roof of your mouth, everybody
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
your audience
Yep.
and you can feel the little ridges.
Yep.
Everybody's got them.
Hmm.
Everybody in the world. And I've got a scar about this wide all the way up the roof of my mouth. And that's because my jaws was complete, my face, my whole palate was gone, ripped in half.
Mm.
And so I remember that, when I got a new dentist will go in to do a cleaning or
They're
somebody
like
or what do they call that?
their routine cleaning
Yeah, routine cleaning. They go like,
x-rays.
"What happened to you?" It's
Like the
like,
x-rays done, they're like,
oh,
wait,
X-rays scare them because
they're
they
like,
like, oh, my jaws are bent here and twisted here and
wow.
pinned here and rotted
Wow.
and
Yeah.
wired. I've got wires still in my upper nasal cavity and so on, and they'll
Yeah.
be there forever. They've been there for whatever, 60
Yeah.
years now, so they may as well just stay there. But
Yeah.
anyhow,
Yeah.
the first thing I really remember was a voice.
Mm.
I remember voices, but the first one I recognized was my mother's voice, and I could
Oh.
hear my mother talking, and
Mm.
well, I I had a tear
Mm.
that when it went down, it was my left eye. When it ran down my cheek, and it
Mm.
felt like somebody just put out a big match and just drug it down my face. That's what it felt. It was so hot. It was just such a hot tear.
Mm.
And my arms worked for however reason. I didn't, I mean, they were cut up and stuff, but I didn't have broken arms and stuff for however that happened. That
Wow.
so that I was fortunate with that, and then later on, and I've got it. It's in my book. It's a little picture of it. And I've got three different things that I wrote, but this
Mhm.
it's a little pad. It's about 2 inches high, 2.5 inches high, and open it up. It's about 4.5 inches wide. But I had scribbled with my right hand um, the words "Am I going to live?"
You'd asked your mom.
Yes, and because I couldn't talk, I couldn't. I had no couldn't do it, and
Hmm.
but if it didn't say "Am I going to live?" printed under the what I wrote, you would have to look at it hard to figure out what it says. So it was really sloppy. I
Mm.
also had two other things like "Am I going to die?"
Mm.
and "I love you." Those were
Mm.
the three.
Yeah. Mm.
I don't know what you're doing here, but you got me
Mm.
affected this morning.
Mm.
And but so that was my life, but I didn't quit and I found humor in it and I spent time at it and
Mm.
and I deep breeded my own burns. I cut off, there's a lot happened.
Wow.
It's like today I did things back then that today they would never in a million years allow you to do, or if they did, you whatever was
Mm.
I suctioned out my own tracheotomy. I turned the pump on and I get the hose and stick it in my neck and down into my lungs, and I could feel where it hit. I could feel it hurt. It has a pain. There is a pain in your lungs when it does. And they'd already been punctured with,
Mm.
and now this is 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, that is happening.
Gosh.
And so that's how it was. Then I got transferred to Ward 30A
Yeah.
with an orthopedic surgery ward, but they kept, that was for burns and facial. That's where I lived then the next 10 months.
Wow. So it
and
was like almost a year
yeah, it was
process
a year. I got
coming
out of the hospital
coming back.
October 31st. Yeah, it was a year.
What
It
was
was
what was
12
that like?
day,
What was
12
that
day,
day like walking
pardon?
out? What was that day like when you walked out of the hospital? Do you remember? Like,
No, I don't.
no?
I was just, I'd been in there so long, I was a piece of furniture. I mean, I spent 8.5 months in traction. I mean, I didn't get out of traction. I mean, it's like I, for 8.5 months, I mean, that I was in bed and then my
Mm,
back was already bad
yeah.
from the car accident. Well, anyhow, my back was just, I was always in pain. Always.
Yeah.
I haven't lived without pain since then.
Mm, mm,
And, but
wow.
I don't remember. I just remember being glad that I was finally able to get out of traction. I'm glad they finally fitted me with a big old metal leg brace that went up into, parked up underneath you. You sat on it with your butt, your pelvis. And I had another one on my right leg that didn't go quite that far. And and you first you fit it, and then you finally get out of bed, and you stand,
Mm,
and then you lay down, and you stay. It's a process. It's a
yeah.
process of
Yeah.
walking with it, and then crutches. You just don't walk with a brace. I mean,
Mm,
so when I went out there, I was still had to have dental work and so on, but I got that done in the civilian world. I wasn't going to wait. I
yeah.
needed to go. I
Yeah.
was I was 12 days shy of a year
Oh my gosh.
in the hospital. So, but anyhow,
Good.
but I got out of that. I kind of rehabbed at home for a little bit. I
Mm,
started, well, I had several jobs, but I couldn't find somebody that would let me sit and somebody that would let me stand. I moved
okay.
up with my aunt up in the way out suburbs of Chicago, and
Mhm.
I never had a problem getting a job. I just say, hey,
Yeah.
dude, I'm sure I didn't say dude, but
Yeah.
I do
That's a
now.
great way. I like
Hey,
that.
hey, listen,
Hey,
dude,
dude.
what do you mean you don't think I can handle it? Look what the hell
Yeah.
I've been through,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Right. That's a
you
good,
know,
that's a
and
resume.
give me a shot or,
Perseverance.
yeah, I'm not gonna, I never back down from anything. And I
Mm,
did. I had like 12 jobs and maybe
yeah.
14 jobs like in 3 months,
Yeah.
but I couldn't, I tried. It was just,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know,
You didn't give
but
up.
no, and then so I went back home and I started a little business on my own. I
Hmm.
started another business and I had I was well, a detail business, a long story. And then I
Hmm.
started flipping cars and Corvettes
Okay.
and stuff
Wow.
for money I had saved. And I started a trucking company
Wow.
and that went real good. And I was an
Yeah.
owner operator for a while, but I had people driving for me. Then
Yeah.
September 3rd, 1973, I broke my neck. I'm sorry, broke my neck. September 73rd, 1973, I had a drunk hit me almost head on and in the evening. And he got thrown out of his pickup truck, no seat belt, run over by his own truck and got killed. And I was in a brand new Monte Carlo with about 300 miles on it, seat belt on. I rolled multiple times down into a really deep ditch and there was a car behind us about a half mile that stopped apparently and found that, hey, I hadn't been thrown out. I was in the vehicle. They didn't know if I was alive or dead. It tore the engine out, ripped the side of the car off. Um, the post, the pillar that holds your windshield in, and gone in and tore my shoulder mostly out, took the bone out the back of my arm, severed the deltoid muscle, uh, busted my ribs, punctured my lung again. Uh, you know, lots of. I remember the glass in my mouth. That was very much. I remember my mouth just full of glass. And my face was all cut up, and my, you know, I was bleeding bad, bleeding real bad, and. Um, they went to get help, but don't you got to remember this is out in the middle of it's like being down south of the cities where you're at, down
Hmm.
towards Mankato in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere,
Yeah.
and you got to drive 10 miles to the next little town, and then the town's only 800 people, and you got to find somebody to tell. You
Hmm.
got to go into the bar to find somebody because we don't have a coffee shop. There isn't a Starbucks on every
Right.
corner,
Right.
and So they finally got somebody, and they got there with their pickup trucks and crew, and they needed a hacksaw to cut some of it away the best they could, and they didn't have their hacksaw, so they went down the road to Larry Hinkle's house, and he wasn't home, so they had to break into his shop and get his hacksaw. And meanwhile, I'm up in the sky. I'm leaving. I bled out. I don't. I'm gone. I'm gone again. And I got to the point where I could hear voices. I can't say they were angels. I don't know what it was, but it was
Mhm.
peaceful. It was welcoming. And in neither of these instances, the Marine Corps or here, do I recall any pain. I
Mhm.
don't remember any pain, none.
Wow.
Whether it's shock, whether it's being dead, whether it's whatever, I don't know. I can't tell you. Don't have a clue. Not going to even guess what it is. But
Mhm.
they took two, I could see them working and trying to get in because my car was tilted up and they were trying to get down into me, which
Yeah.
was in an awkward position.
Yeah.
And they had two guys lay down up on a blanket on the road. Then they ran a tube down and stuck it in me, and they were giving me direct transfusions to try getting some blood in me and then trying to stop where the blood was leaking out. And as I was still ascending, they must have got enough blood in me because then it was like 4 or 5 days later, and I was, I came around. I was in the hospital, and that's all I can.
Wow.
That's all I remember.
Okay, so
It,
how many years was this? How old
three,
were you at this time? You were
23,
22, 23.
20, yeah, I was 23. Yeah, yeah. It had been 3 years since I got out of the hospital from the Marine Corps. Not quite three, about 2 years and 10 months, 8 months, 9 months. And speaking of that, my mother showed up a few days later and she had a rolled up newspaper and was beating the heck out of my right side, screaming at me, "Quit doing this to us. Quit
Oh,
doing it, you know." And I
yeah.
said, "Mom, I'm not, I didn't do,
You're,
you
you,
know." But I look back now as having been a father and a grandfather and a
yeah,
adopted kids and everything. And I'm thinking, I feel her pain now.
can't even imagine.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, here she stood there she was there for 6, 7 weeks till, and she couldn't recognize me. She told me years later, she said, "Jay, even when you wrote that out, and I've got it. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find it real quick while I'm here.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I wrote that out, she said, uh, oh my gosh, hold on. I know it's here. I just don't want to spend your valuable time and your
Yeah.
client's time.
So this is the tablet that you wrote in the
Yes,
hospital the first time?
I I know it's in here, but my wheelchair is not
Oh,
cooperating with me. And
that's okay.
but anyhow,
Yeah.
so it was taken to the point that yeah, I mean, it had been I got out of the hot. Well, she didn't know who I was. She couldn't
Mhm.
recognize me then, and at all. And
Wow.
so now it's uh, less than 4 years later that it happened again, but
Mm.
less than 3 years since I just gotten out, and um,
Wow.
anyhow, so I went through all that and they got me back and they put my deltoid muscle, reattached it and did the stuff with bones and whatnot.
Wow.
And I got back out of that and
Yeah.
then I started, I continued with the companies I had going
Mm-hmm.
and I had people running that, progressed on. I had a little corporate job that they didn't pay me.
Mm.
Um, I got a check for $8,000, but they weren't paying me. I was handling uh, 7 states up
Wow.
north, in
Okay.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Illinois, no, Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
and
So you were doing a lot.
yeah, I was on the road a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
at any rate, um, they weren't paying me. They just weren't. sending the checks. It was a company out of Charlotte, North Carolina,
Mm.
and I was a regional manager. I had to terminate people, hire people, terminate people. I finally just took it over myself and was doing more myself than
Yeah.
all those other people put together. Just
Oh,
because
wow.
there's no I found that there's no commitment.
Mm.
There's no determination. There's no
Yeah.
perseverance. There's no courage. There's no follow
Mm.
through. It just doesn't exist. And that
Oh,
was
that was a long time ago.
40 some years ago.
It's
Yeah, it was
declined
very,
even
very,
more, right?
very, very disappointing. So anyhow, I took their van. It was a display van with a it was built out of beautiful. It was beautiful. And
Mhm.
I took it to a regional airport and I took the license plates off of it and I put them inside and I put the keys in it and I called them and said, "Hey, your van's available for you to find. It's at a regional airport in the upper Midwest. You'll have to locate it." And that didn't leave the cops anybody to call because they have a license plate number. So I don't know where they ever found it, but I walked away,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. And then I got not too much later. I was long story how that happened, but I secured a job with GTE, and
Mm.
GTE was the largest independent phone company in the United States and the
Okay.
largest publisher of Yellow Pages in the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
Yellow Pages, you're old enough maybe to
I
remember
remember. Yep. I
Yellow
remember.
Pages.
I
Okay.
do. Yep.
And I was raised in a GTE area with GTE phone book. We
Okay.
didn't really use the phone book a lot, but boy, if the phone book wasn't by the phone, you were in
You needed
trouble.
a phone book.
Well, there were times when you needed it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I remember being raised with a three-digit number in a ring up, and then we went to four digits on a party line. We had seven people, then we went down to four
Yeah.
families, you know.
Mhm.
So I went through all that stuff. But
You've been
any
through all of it. You've
I've
been
been
through
through it.
all the generations.
Hey,
I love it.
Everything but
I think it's
Dixie
great.
cups with a string, you know. It's
Oh,
like,
that's so funny. Well, I want to just capture because I'm going to have to wrap us up pretty soon. I want to make sure that we capture your book. So can we kind of lead into tell us the name of your book first of all?
it's the strength within you. It's always too soon to quit.
I mean, that name in and of itself, amazing. When did this book launch?
Uh, December 20th, just this last year, on the ebook, but the book didn't actually publish until late January.
Of
And it's
2026.
2026, and it's been number one in inspirational, uh,
Wow.
the inspirational area for people with physical disabilities, and
Okay.
motivation and inspirational book for people between in the late teens to the mid 30s.
Oh, wow.
And and
Congratulations.
you're welcome.
Yeah,
And
that's
one of the best testimonials I've had out of it was I got an email to my website. My website is, and of all the websites I could have ever chosen,
yeah,
I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to name this? I mean,
yeah,
I got to have something. It's got to be creative. It's got to be
yeah,
me. It's got to.
yeah.
So I typed in, believe it or not, I typed in "never quit trying," and it
Yeah.
came up. So
.com.
.com. That's it. Never
So
quit
there's
trying.
his website, neverquittrying.com, because I always ask like what's the best way to get a hold of
Yep.
you. So
That's it.
never quit trying. That was available. That is wild.
Isn't that wild? Out
It
of
is
all the
wild.
things, God
Yeah.
saved that for me.
He was like,
G-
this is Jay's. Nobody else can have this one. So
God
I
saved it
want
for me.
listeners, I want you to just hear this for a minute because Jay released his ebook when you were 76 prior to New Year's, right? Is that right?
Well, I was 75. It came out 11 days before I turned 76. Yeah. It took me a
Okay.
year to dictate it and somebody to kind of fill it in. And
Okay. So I just really want the listeners to hear at 75 you released your first book.
Mhm.
I talked to a lot of people and they were like, "Oh, I'm too old. I'm too this, I'm too that." And what would you say to somebody who like was it challenging? I mean, was writing your first book challenging?
The most challenging part out of it, Kristen, was the fact that I had to remember back to things I've been trying to forget for 55 years or longer.
Mm,
Death,
yeah.
dismemberment,
Hmm.
pain.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part.
Hmm.
That was, it's something I avoid. I've been told to write, I should be, I've been told for 50 plus years I should write a book.
Oh,
But if I did, I would have missed a lot had I done it. Because,
okay.
one thing I wanted to jump on real quick, kind of,
Hmm.
and it goes along with the book though, is part of what your show's based on too, and that's in the belief of the all-powerful being, and that's our great Lord. And
Hmm.
but on July 4th, 1981, I jumped in a swimming pool, feet first, broke my neck in four places and drowned, and uh, was paralyzed from the shoulders down, never supposed to move again. And you know, my as my mom pointed out to me about 4 months later, through a long story, and I know that we don't have time right now, or we'll have to revisit it. But basically, one day she said they came to visit me, and my mom and dad, and they said, something about, and I said, well, why me? And I didn't
Hmm.
mean why me like badly or woe is me, but why
Right.
me? I mean, I should have died in high school. I should have died in the Marine Corps. I should have died in the car accident. I should have died here. I mean, and stayed dead. I was dead.
Hmm.
I was gone. I mean, I was turning colors and all this. And one of the things my mom said, she said, Jay, you always got to remember, you were the one that jumped in the pool. You made the decision. Yes, some guys were going to throw you in, and you were all partying around. It was the 4th of July. I was 31 years old,
Sure.
31 years old. And so, but you jumped in. You made that choice, that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the young lady that jumped in to help save you, and then the young man that jumped in to help her after 8 minutes when you were turning colors and starting to turn dark. And it was you jumped in, God helped save you.
Amen.
And if it wasn't for a prayer that I accepted shortly after I broke my neck, I was married 3 weeks the day that I broke my neck, 3 weeks, and my second wife. And but she met a gentleman in the waiting room who came in and wanted to offer me a prayer. She said if I would accept it, blink my eyes because that's the only thing that worked. Of course, I did. I accepted that prayer, and he went to a church of about 5,000 people up in your area,
Mm.
and he went to every service every Sunday the entire time I was in the hospital and Sister Kenny Institute there in,
Yeah.
in, in your area,
Right.
and asked for prayer from everybody. And my mother did at her church, and I did. And I'm an overachiever. I mean, I do more than they've ever asked me to do. I always did, always will. That's me. That's just me.
Mhm.
And but I got more back, even though I saw incremental successes throughout a
Mhm.
week. I got
Yeah.
more back on Sundays, and I believe a lot of it, Kristen, to your audience, was the
Hmm.
power of prayer, the
Yeah.
power of 5 or 6 thousand people raising me up to the
Wow.
Lord.
Yeah.
And I don't mind saying that. And I say
Yeah.
it with
It's,
all faith and belief. And it's God that allowed me to walk. It was God that allowed me to follow my vision, my
mhm.
goals, my and help me do what I did and always has.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I should have died from Delta Cova 5 years ago. They told my wife to go home. He'll be dead by Thursday or Friday.
Mhm.
And I fought it. I fought it. I mean, and I was in the hospital 5 months, 5 months in four different hospitals. Two
Mhm.
years ago, I was going to Florida to visit the people that I just went and saw,
Yeah.
and got hit a little bit from behind, threw me into the guardrail in the middle on a 5 lane interstate. I went across 1 lane of traffic, across 5 lanes of traffic, totaled the vehicle out.
God.
They got me out of the vehicle, and the only thing I had was a cut on my right leg, and I felt when I was going through that, it was all just loud noise,
Yeah.
fast, but I felt like a toothpick stuck in the middle of a marshmallow. And I told the people right there, I said, God had
Wow.
his hand around me.
That is
God
quite
had
the
his hand around
visual.
me.
Like,
Do what?
that is quite the visual. Just a toothpick with a marshmallow surrounding. Like you were
That's what I felt
literally like
like.
surrounded.
That's what I felt like.
Wow.
And when I was up, they got my wheelchair up, and they got me up. I was sitting between one of the emergency vehicles and the state trooper car and all the other people and so on and so forth. And I didn't even slow traffic down. Traffic was going by at 80 miles an hour. It was like, shoo, shoo, shoo. And
Wow.
anyhow, the EMT people were talking, and I could hear them, and they said, We've never seen anybody live through this. Never. And we've been through a lot of accidents.
Yeah, I bet.
And the guy, one gentleman came up with me, and another one was standing just a little bit to the back, and he said, you don't seem to be real have a lot of anxiety, or and they took my blood pressure. I was 114 over 72. And he said, you don't seem to and be concerned a lot or terrified or anything. And I said, sir, you don't have a clue what
You
I've
don't
been
know where,
through.
right?
I told him, you don't
Right.
have a clue what I've been through.
Let me tell you. Would you like to sit down?
Yeah, no, they didn't have
Wow.
time.
Oh my gosh. Jay,
So,
this is I mean I've never met anybody. I feel like I've walked through a lot and I've like I won't get into my story, but gosh, like somebody who's literally walked through the fires and come out and I look at you and hear you and I don't, I don't see scars physically
hmm,
on you, but there are, as
well,
we
I've got a
walk.
lot of scars, but
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact that you're standing here and you're still standing and you're speaking and you're testifying to the goodness of God, that is incredible. And I just thank you for that. I think more people need to hear what you've walked through, first of all. And second of all, take what they've walked through and testify to the goodness of God because we all have different stories. We all have just different
oh,
testimonies. Some
what?
I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine like the physical pain and what you walk through, right? But we all have different things that we walk through, and I just want to thank you for
Well,
sharing everything you've
we
shared
we all
today.
have stories, Kristen, and I want to share just real quick is the strength within you. It's always too soon to quit. Yes, it does cover some of my physical issues, but more importantly, it was about I wanted to write the book to tell you what to do to overcome this. How
Yeah.
do you get through this? What do you draw on? Where does it come from? And all of that courage and grit and perseverance and uh, d- d- uh, the commitment to never quitting, the
Mhm.
all of that stuff. How do you draw that? And it's in you. You have it in your body. You have it in you. You just need to dig it out to
Mhm.
help push you and pull you through the adversities and the roadblocks and the detours. And
Yeah.
one gentleman I had a podcast with said, you're the first person I've ever read a book that in their acknowledgments you thank the people that stood in your way, the ones that stopped you, the ones that told you no, the ones that caused you problems. You
Mm,
thank them because it put more of a fire in your heart and it made you push harder and go ahead because you were going to prove them wrong.
mm,
So if I didn't have that on top of everything else, so every little bit you go through
yeah.
makes you stronger. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about because we can all be winners. We all are winners. God brought us here to be winners. And that,
Mhm.
that take that in whatever context you want, but to be successful. And we
Yeah.
can be. We just have to choose it. And a choice and a decision, a choice is like tea or coffee, and the decision is which one you took.
True.
But we are a product of our choices and decisions. and
Yes.
and what happened and how you dealt with it. What do you
Mhm.
do with it? That's the biggest thing. It's not, it's when somebody tells me they've got an award for something, that's great. I don't
Mhm.
I don't belittle the award. I'm just
Yeah.
interested, what did you do to win
Mhm.
it? And what
Mhm.
did you have to overcome to make sure that you could win it?
That's good.
Because
That's
that's
good.
what makes you
That's what you
stronger.
want to hear.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I think there's so much goodness you've shared here today that's like I can only imagine the testimonies that are going to come through this, and people are going to want to contact you. So you shared your website already. Could you just verbalize your website
It's
again?
just neverquittrying.com. And
Okay.
there's a
And
contact on there,
okay.
neverquittrying.com. There's a little thing in there, and it's
Okay.
going to get better. It's
Yeah.
it's not terrible, but it needs to
Hey,
get better.
it
But
doesn't have to
or
be perfect, right?
you don't have to be. I'm not perfect, and I've
No.
I've gone quite a ways,
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
but or
Yeah.
Jay at neverquittrying.com or on there, just
Okay.
send it and it appears,
Okay.
it comes to me. But I wanted to share this little story because it's
Yeah.
very, very poignant to
Hmm.
where we're talking about on age. But I got an email about 3.5 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it says, "Dear Mr. Setchell, I got your book from my son, and my son got it from his son. So
Oh,
ultimately, it came from my grandson, and I've read your book." And I
yeah.
read it again. And the second time I read it, I highlighted it and I underlined the sentences and I circled words and all this stuff like this. And here's what I want to tell you. I'm 88 and a half. My husband passed away 5 years ago, and
Oh,
I'm not in the best of health, though I know I could improve my health a little by just eating a little better and doing a little bit better and doing things different. But I've really not cared if I
mm,
live to make it to 90. I just didn't care. But I
mm,
want you to know that from what I've gotten out of your book and the inspiration and what you've been through, and you're fighting and you intend on staying alive till you're 100, I'm now planning my 95th birthday. Now, that to me meant a lot.
it was worth it to write it
It
for the
was
one,
worth it.
right?
Just
For
that
the
one
one.
person,
Yeah.
that one person,
Incredible. Wow.
and
You lit a fire in her to keep going.
she, that's what she said. She said, you've given me, I mean, I've never had any of that. And I don't care if I live. You want to live and you've been through all that.
Yeah.
Why?
And isn't it
So
amazing how just from somebody hearing your story, you writing it, that it would literally be able to pull somebody maybe out of a pit of quit, the pit of quit.
the
That is
pit of
funny.
quit.
The,
Yeah,
the,
you're gonna have to,
the pit of quit.
you'll have to, what do you call that? Trademark that.
I
It's
don't
like,
know. I have all these little things that come out of my mouth. Um, well, this has been incredible. I do have to wrap up for today, but we might have to have you back on again at some point.
okay. Well, there's a
When
whole
your
lot you
next book
missed.
comes out and all the things.
There's a whole lot you missed that we just haven't covered that I think
I
that you would
know.
find because of what you're talking and the way you're and
Mm,
the people you're trying to get the point across. There's a lot out there that
yeah.
we never even
We'll
came.
have to go to part two, part two.
I've done that multiple
That'd be
times. So
amazing. Well, I'm gonna close for today, but thank
thanks,
you
Kristen.
so much for being on today. And I'm gonna close with the anchoring verse for the podcast. It's may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And that's Romans 15:13. So thank you, Jay, for being a brave voice who's setting so many free. I
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
having being on here today. Like I said, we'll have to have him back for part two. And I
Okay.
will be back with another episode next week. Thanks, listeners.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank
Jay.
you, Kristen. God bless.